Welcome back, guys. I don't know why, but some of y'all want to hear my opinion on current events. I ain't really delved into it too much because there have been plenty of other folks covering everything, but to satisfy some folks, I figure we'll go ahead and address it and kind of go over a couple of things. So everybody is concerned right now about a nuclear attack by Russia. Now, a couple of things we need to preface right here at the start of the video. Number one, I reserve the right to be wrong about anything. Secondly, I don't have any super secret special informational access points that probably most of the rest of you don't have. On the exception that I did, anything that I did find out wouldn't be something that I could share publicly or would share publicly anyway. So that kind of applies across the board. So anybody that you hear talking about they've got the super secret inside scoop on things and this, that, or the other is going to happen, unless you can find it openly and publicly somewhere, chances are they're just excuse me, guessing. Because if they did have context with that kind of information, just like I wouldn't be able to share it, they wouldn't be able to either. So take that with a grain of salt and keep it in, what's that word that I always tell you guys to make sure you use? Context. So, everything going on with Russia right now. Lots of folks worried about a nuclear attack by them. Could they do it? Absolutely. That's been the case for a while. Personally, I don't think it's likely. Not on us. Possible, always. I don't think it's likely. And here's why. Excuse me. I shouldn't have ate popcorn before I did this video, but my wife had some left over and I couldn't just let it sit there. Nuking America, or even a NATO country in Europe, whatever, would be absolutely nothing but a lose-lose situation for Russia. They would have zero to gain by doing that. If they did that to us, even with the current wackadoodle pansy administration, they would have no choice but to massively retaliate. And while I do fully believe the Russians still have plenty of capability of hitting anything in the world they want to hit with a nuke, I do have some pretty big doubts about their numbers of what they have capable of doing that, because I don't think over the years since the Cold War that they have been able to put the same amount of maintenance into their nuclear stockpile and delivery system stockpile as we have. So while they may still have a bunch, I wouldn't count on all of them being actually functional and or deliverable, whereas pretty sure all of ours are. So hitting us would result in them basically getting vaporized off the face of the earth by not only us but probably NATO allies as well. It wouldn't make any sense. Now, I personally think it's probably more likely, and this doesn't mean that I think it's absolutely going to happen. I'm just saying this is a more likely scenario than them hitting us. If they used one or two low-yield tactical nukes somewhere on Ukraine, I think that would be an actual win-win for them. There wouldn't really be anything bad to come out of it, because A, it would probably very quickly end the conflict in their favor, and secondly, no one's going to do anything about it. I know it's great to, pound our chest and sound all great, but from what I know, the reality of this situation is nothing will be done. We are not going to nuke Russia for them attacking a non-NATO country, non-NATO ally. NATO's not going to nuke them for hitting a non-NATO country. Literally no one's going to do anything other than a bunch of strongly worded speeches and letters and probably more sanctions and condemnation by the worthless blue helmets, etc. That's literally, the sanctions would probably be the worst thing they'd have to deal with, and it would probably improve their standing with some of their existing allies. So the sanctions really wouldn't, in all reality, do a whole lot to them. So they really don't have a whole lot to lose there. Now, where I do think there is a significant concern is, in case you guys hadn't been paying attention, we are not doing good financially. We are in a very, very precarious place economically at a national level. People tend to get very edgy, for lack of a better word, when financial things start getting on a real tipping point. Not to mention, as most of you are probably been following, there's a good chance that we're going to see some real serious food issues coming up in months ahead. We've got an election this year. You've got people upset about things with the Supreme Court right now. All the mixtures there for another great summer of fun and frivolity, just like in the election year of 2020. Coincidence? I think not. That said, we're doing something, and by we I mean the government, that it blows my mind and a lot of other people's minds. We are openly putting out there that we provided aid, intelligence, and strike package workups that directly resulted in Ukraine taking out a bunch of the Russian generals and sinking of their flagship, the Black Sea Fleet. That blows my mind that we would put that out in the public realm. And there's a reason why that's being done, I believe. That's just tactically stupid, right? Everywhere that they got any of that information to use to put all that together, the instant they put it out in the public, those sources got compromised. You also directly implicate yourself. Think about it. During the Vietnam War, Russia was 100% supplying, equipping, and training the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, and actually had boots on the ground participating directly against American forces. But they never have officially admitted any involvement at all in the Vietnam War. None. There's a reason for that. We should be doing the same thing. Yes, we know we're involved, but publicly giving details like that and publicly admitting it is just a bad idea, because you are inserting yourself directly into that situation, no questions asked at that point, which gives Russia justifiable cause to say, okay, yep, you're an active participant now. So where does all that lead us to? Well, this leads to my current concern. There are a lot of things Russia could do to us and never have to directly engage us in a military fight. They could simply do things like, I don't know, cyber warfare issues. Hacking into the power grid would be a huge one. Hacking into banking systems. Food service industry. You name it. There's all kind of vulnerabilities where they could wreak havoc on us and hit just the right domino to send everything crashing down, like a lot of us have been concerned about for years. And we do all the work for them. We would do everything we would do things better here than they could ever dream of doing against ourselves. And something like a cyber thing, they don't even have to directly do it. They can farm it out. It gives them even more plausible deniability. There's no way you could prove that they did it. Not at a believable level anyway. There are things that they can do to us economically on the world stage. If you don't think them getting paid in rubles for oil is a big thing, then I would suggest you needed to brush up on that a little bit more. Them pushing other OPEC countries to remove the dollar as the oil standard, aka the petrodollar, and go to a different currency is a huge thing. There's lots of things they can do, lots of reasons why we don't need them ticked off at us. So I'm bringing all this up to tell y'all, them nuking us is probably extraordinarily low on the probability list. Possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I pray to the good Lord in heaven that that never happens. But it's possible. I just don't think, if you add a long list of the probabilities, it's going to be way down at the bottom for me. I'm not really worried about the nuke side of it. And let's face it, even if they set off 5 or 6 nukes here in America, yes, there would be just horrendous death tolls, but if you really look at it on a map, the destructive scale and areas is going to be pretty small overall. I mean, they're going to be little pin dots on a map. Think like a 5 to 10 mile radius area on the map, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, there might be some fallout concerns, but that's going to be honestly fairly limited depending on wind and all that. So it's not like the old Cold War scenarios where you're talking about both of us literally blanketing the entire continent with their nukes on us and our nukes on them, enough to like wipe out life on a continent altogether. I just don't think that, from what I've seen, I don't think they've got that capability right now. Their nuke status isn't that big. So all I'm telling you is, pay attention, listen to what other folks have got to say, and I'm not putting down any channel or anybody that's talking about it. Just keep everything in context, take it with a grain of salt, and really think about the probabilities and likelihoods of various scenarios. Keep tabs on things, and just do like you should always be doing, and stay ready all the time. Part of the point of staying ready all the time for something bad to happen means that you don't have to live in a constant state of worry or fear. If something happens, you've taken all the precautions you can take and you're ready for it to deal with it as best you can. So you get to go on about your life and live every day knowing that you have taken measures to be ready for it. So try to look at it in that way, in that frame of reference. We could get really out into the weeds with all this stuff, so I'm trying to keep it fairly condensed. Excuse me. That's really kind of the big point. Just don't get too overwhelmed in us getting nuked. I just don't think right now that's high on the list. The summer we're about to enter into in this election year, I think poses a far greater risk, because I'll be quite honest and blunt. If the powers that be feel like they're suddenly about to lose a massive amount of power within the government, i.e. Senate, Congress, various departments, etc., I wouldn't put it past them. I think they would go to great lengths to cause things to happen to keep that from happening. I think we've already seen a little bit of that brewing up. I do not believe that the whole thing with the Supreme Court was an accident. That was absolutely calculated and done on purpose, and I think with a specific purpose, but we're going to wait and see how it plays out. Just remember that I said that here in case we have to circle back to it down the road. But definitely start staying frosty as we move into summertime. There are lots of concerns I have about that on the domestic front. And again, I will lay my head on my pillow every night and be asking the good Lord to avert all of my concerns from us. But still give us the foresight and the wisdom to be ready for it should it happen. So, I think we're going to wrap it up on that one. If you didn't get the point now, me rambling on more is probably not going to get the point across to you anymore. That's what I would encourage you to think about and ponder going forward. So, summing it all up, possible, but not likely. Very low probability of it happening, so don't get too overly wound up about it. Keep it on your radar. Absolutely keep it on your radar, but don't get too overly wound up, okay? Hope you guys have a good week. Do what you got to do. Keep getting ready. Stay vigilant. And I'll see you in another one.